Good morning, all my YouTube people. About 4:56 a.m. I just haven't been able to sleep. Um, and you know, just make sure I'm okay. Just making sure I'm using the right um, microphone here. So, um, I'm not sure what I've titled this video, uh, but I'm just getting really scared, guys, for like lack of a better term. Um, you know, uh, I've had several interviews um, lately. Um, and I've never really had an issue with interviews. Uh, but there've been a couple of, for one thing, I've been working on paper since I was 19. I've been applying for jobs since I was 16. I grew up in an area where the Rio Grande Valley, I mean, I just wasn't able to get a job on paper between 16 and 19. It wasn't until the call center industry moved to the Harlingen area where there was actually an industry that wasn't completely, for one thing, it seems to me like the only people who get hired at the mall, because I applied at the mall a lot when I was that age, the only people who get hired at the mall are like girls or like really young guys. Women, girls, really young guys. Uh, and the other thing you have to remember about the area, about the valley, is that a lot of people like just stay with their job. When I was a kid, a certain woman worked the electronics department at Walmart. She worked the electronics department at Walmart before the Walmart in Harlingen became a supercenter, okay? I was just home a few years ago, and she still works the electronics department at Walmart, Her hair's gray now, but she still works that. Like, how do you, so that's the first thing. I get burnt out on doing things, and that happens relatively quickly. Some people can last 14 years in a job. Some people can last 30 years in a job. I've got 3 or 4 years in me to do one thing. I usually try and move around in a company to kind of ease that up a little bit, but if I can't move around in a company and do something different, I find it very difficult to stick with that with any type of enthusiasm, you know? And working call centers when I first started working, was just it was just exhausting. The only thing that really helped was that at least it was like a 10 or 15 minute drive away. It was in town, it was close, it did not pay well, and I was able to do a lot of different things in the call center industry. I did tech support for Microsoft. I was a fraud agent for Bank of America and GE Capital Credit. I was a sales and tech support rep for Dish Network. Um, I got to do several things within that industry, but I still had to kind of move around within it to be able to tolerate it. Then I moved to China for a while, and you know, I know guys who are still in China, still teaching English, but I mean, for me, like, I was pretty burnt out on teaching English after a few years. I would have been, I enjoyed teaching social studies and stuff like that. There was some variety in that, but like, I was really burnt out on teaching English, which is why ultimately I didn't really have a hard time coming home. You know, I was kind of ready to do that. It's like I could almost get back into the call center industry and be okay with it now. Sometimes if you have a suitable break from something, you can get back into it. Um, but in there, I did things for myself, especially between 16 and 18. I did a lot of landscaping. I mowed lawns. I did some salvage work for people who needed it. I tutored at my college within my subject, and remedial math here and there. The fact that I was a math tutor is just even beyond me, because my math skills aren't the best. After I got back home, I worked. I worked in call centers again for a little bit. That's when before I left, I believe, was when I did. I basically worked for the same company, two different divisions. The first time I worked for them was Bank of America, and then the second time was GE Capital Credit. But ultimately, I just then what? Then I moved back up here, and so when I got back from China, I was up here a little bit in DFW, and things just weren't working out with staying with my parents, and I ended up kind of moving back home. It was sort of when I moved back home that I had to work for them again. Then after I moved up here, I did some more landscaping and odd jobs up here when I first got up here, and then I got into retail, and worked for basically the same retailer for about a decade off and on at several locations. I've also held a job in telecom, a part-time job in telecom since 2015. I ran my own computer sales and repair business for a little while. I have repaired and modified electric guitars and basses for people. There's probably a handful of other things that I'm missing. I worked, when I first started seeing my first partner, I worked for her grandparents at a exotic bird ranch. I mean, I have done a lot of things. I have done a lot of things for a lot of different companies, and I find it very difficult to sit down at an interview now and go through that interview like I'm some rookie getting their first job. It has gotten very difficult for me to let's say that you're having trouble getting along with another employee and yada 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 yada. How would you take care of that? I mean, you wouldn't get in that situation. You know, first off, you know, there are a number of ways not to get in that situation. You know, just dividing tasks properly, if you have to work together, is a good way to not step on each other's toes. If you are having issues, that's generally for HR to help work out and things like that. So why should we hire you over someone else for this position? Well, I mean, fuck, you've been talking to me for half an hour. You know, if you don't know that by now, maybe you haven't asked the right questions. You know, it is very difficult for me to give some like rookie answer to any of these things. I have found it harder and harder and harder to fake that, you know. But I have never had as difficult a time getting work as I have in the last couple of years, since about 2024. And you know, that's when kind of the AI takeover sort of started becoming like it was going to be apparent and happening. And then there's all the I forgot to mention the temp jobs I've done, the passport approvals or disapprovals, immigration document sorting, and I just worked a warehouse. I have an interview Wednesday with Adecco for another warehouse position, right? And you know, that's the other thing. I don't want to work at a warehouse. I don't really want to work at a grocery store. I am pretty banged up on my right side now. It is very difficult for me to keep up with that type of physical work long term. You know, I've been wanting to kind of get back into customer service, but like one of my subscribers said recently, Joey and I talk a little bit off YouTube now. He kind of very bluntly was like, listen dude, the only job that anybody gets these days is jobs that you have experience in. And I guess to a certain extent he's right, you know, but I don't, you know, I don't have some great yearn to go work at a grocery store again. I don't have some great yearn to, you know, go be on my feet for 12 hours straight at a warehouse, and, you know, start wondering if I even left work or not. Do any of you guys out there know what it's like to work like a 12-hour shift, like 3 or 4 days a week? Literally, by the time you're kind of nearing the end of your second day, by then you're already wondering if you left work or not. You'll be standing at the urinal taking a piss going, did I go home? And then you start wondering if you actually fed your cats and shit. That's not how anyone should live, you know? And then you have like people who are just outright like corporate cucks, okay? Who absolutely live to work. I'm very much the work to live kind of. I do not live to work. You know, but I've never really actually had trouble getting a job. Like, generally I could have another job within a week. What's been difficult these days is not just getting an interview and getting a job, but also kind of keeping it. You know, I complain about temp work, but it's almost like everything's temp work now. You know, the only thing that having a non-temp job really gets you is a probation period and knowledge of when you will be permanent. Now, that is something, you know? Uh, because at least you know where you stand. But I mean, there are temp jobs where, yeah, I have a relative who works for a very big company, and he mentioned recently that they were going to let all of their temp workers go. And these guys had been temps for 2.5 years. For one thing, that is an extremely long time to be a temp, right? But it is long enough that you might get into a feeling of complacency like you're not a temp anymore. And, you know, a lot of those people got cars, got houses, you know. Who can live like that? You know? You can't really plan anything with your money. Um, I've been wanting to get into motorcycling, for example, most of my life. But you know, you guys look at me. I'm a big guy. You know, I weigh anywhere between 220 and 240. I've been around 240 a lot of my life. I weighed 240 in high school as a swimmer. You know, I weigh a little less sometimes, but you know, I can't get on some beginner bike with 40 horsepower and, you know, enjoy that. Like the kind of bike that's going to get a guy like me around is kind of like in the at a minimum the 60 to 70 horsepower range. We're talking like $10,000, but I can't, you know, I can't dedicate any money to that. I need to like get stuff done on my car too. You know, I feel like I can't get any of that stuff done because not only is the temp job uncertain, it'll start disappearing at some point, depending on what you're doing in it. If you're in replenishment, for example, and less work starts coming in, you're going to disappear. You know, you can usually see the writing on the wall. You know, it's like, well, they're sending more and more of us home early. You know, right then you need to start applying for other temp jobs or actual jobs or whatever. But I might have mentioned that I also had an interview with a popular car rental company to be a lot attendant, right? I got to this job after being in a car accident that was not my fault in any way. I was told my interview went well. I had an employee referral, a manager referral from another branch. Aside from being a little trembly and nervous from the accident, I'd have what I'd call a very good interview. And I was really expecting to leave that interview with that job, but that did not happen. Not only did that not happen, when I talked to the person who gave me the referral, they were completely unaware that their location wasn't available to apply for. And it still isn't. This person's still trying to get me on at their location, and it's like corporate's trying to tell you that you need to get rid of your current guy if you want another guy, if you want me. And I think that they are leery of you wanting to replace an old guy with an old guy. You know? That's really what this comes down to. And it just feels like it's more and more like I've just never gone to so many interviews with nothing to show for it. I'm scared. I am very scared. I managed to get rent taken care of this month, but I'm completely, I don't know how I'm going to do it this month. You know, I have maybe a week or so to come up with how I'm going to do that. You know, I have no clue. Anyway, if you guys have any input towards this, you know, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Always trying to grow the channel. Goemonronin signing out.